Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be back.
So today, we're taking a bit of a fascinating detour, actually. Our source material is pointing us toward this, well, glorious, often hidden corner of the audio world.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of corner?
We're talking about English podcasts dedicated entirely to niche interests.
Ah, right. So we're moving beyond the big mainstream shows then.
Exactly. Well, and truly beyond the, the predictable stuff.
That's a key distinction here, I think. For this deep dive, we're deliberately setting aside those huge categories, the top 10 true crime, the big self-improvement gurus, the endless business news.
Yeah, all that.
When we say niche, we really mean programs focusing on super specific, sometimes intensely held passions, often with tiny but fiercely devoted audiences.
And it's amazing how specific they get. When you dive into the material, it really hits you. What grabbed my attention straight away were the examples the sources gave.
Like what?
Well, entire shows dedicated just to restoring vintage maps. Can you believe it?
Wow, okay, that's specific.
And podcasts exploring the folklore around haunted libraries.
Okay, that sounds cool.
And my personal favorite, a recurring series that unpacks the very serious art and history of competitive cheese rolling, in the UK.
Competitive cheese rolling.
Yeah,
right,
real.
It just proves, doesn't it? There really is content for absolutely everything.
Totally. So our mission today really is to uncover some of these highly specific English podcasts, the kind you might never stumble upon through the usual algorithms.
And we want to show you the real power of this kind of focused listening. Maybe even introduce you to your next great obsession.
Yeah, exactly. Let's dive in.
Okay.
All right, let's unpack this central idea first. The common advice, especially if you're learning English, is often stick to the mainstream.
Right. Listen to the news, popular culture, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the thinking is it guarantees broad general exposure. But we need to challenge that a bit. Why bother going niche?
Well, I think the appeal is fundamentally psychological. It's not just about the information itself.
How so?
Niche listening is where genuine passion really meets intellectual curiosity. It's kind of the opposite of superficial content, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like discovering a secret club, a place where the depth of your personal obsession, maybe it's 17th century clock mechanisms or, I don't know, the subtleties of lost languages, is instantly understood.
And celebrated. You're suddenly surrounded by people who just get it.
Exactly. And, this isn't just a sort of feel-good idea.
No, the research we looked at actually points to a very measurable cognitive benefit here.
It does. Niche listening, it seems, can significantly boost your focus.
And crucially, your learning retention as a result.
And the why behind that is really interesting. When you're genuinely interested, right, when you have an emotional stake in the content, like you care about the fate of that sourdough starter or the history of that obscure map.
Yeah, you're invested.
Your brain activates these emotional memory pathways. And that strong emotional connection, it just locks in the information more effectively.
So it's not just rote learning.
Not at all. It's learning driven by, dopamine, essentially.
Yeah.
You're linking the learning process with real enjoyment.
Which naturally creates a stronger memory trace. Makes sense.
Definitely.
Okay, speaking of highly enjoyable content, let's get into some specific recommendations from the sources. These are some of the more obscure shows that really highlight the quality out there in the niche world.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Let's start with one that sounds potentially heavy, but the analysis suggests it's actually profoundly reflective. It's called The Art of Dying.
The Art of Dying. Yeah, it sounds incredibly morbid on the surface, doesn't it?
It does.
But the analysis describes it as, anything but morbid. It takes this thoughtful cultural look at funeral traditions, rituals, customs from all over the world.
Right. It reframes a subject that's often taboo in many cultures.
Totally.
And that seems to be the brilliance of their approach. They take mortality, which is universal, obviously, and turn it into this beautiful, respectful conversation about life, customs, legacy. They use these really deeply researched cultural anecdotes, apparently, showing the sheer variety in how humanity approaches the end.
Transforming something difficult into something about, enduring human connection.
Precisely.
Okay, next up, one for the language lovers out there, the history of English podcast.
Ah, yes, this one sounds fantastic. Often described as a kind of time machine for words.
And that description feels earned based on the sources. If you've ever wondered why English is such a wonderfully messy language,
Which it absolutely is.
borrowing rules and words from all over the place, this show is basically your guide.
Yeah. Apparently, the host might take a common word, like skull seems purely English, right?
Right.
And trace it all the way back through, say, the migration of Norse settlers, showing the collision of Old English and Old Norse happening almost in real time.
Word by word over centuries. It makes etymology feel like this epic historical drama.
Doesn't it, Tess?
And finally, for listeners who appreciate that blend of atmospheric history with maybe a touch of the eerie, there's lore.
Ah, lore. Yes. This one is often highlighted for its narrative quality, especially for a niche show.
Right, high production values.
Exactly. It blends folklore, lesser-known history, local legends, all in this highly cinematic style. It's apparently perfect for fans of eerie tales.
Because it digs into the real history behind the spookiness.
Precisely. It emphasizes that a lot of our strange cultural superstitions, our monster stories, they often have very grounded, sometimes quite sad, historical origins.
Fascinating. And it just proves that high production value isn't only for the big mainstream topics.
Absolutely not. Passion projects can be incredibly polished.
Okay, let's pivot slightly. This is maybe the most critical takeaway for you, the listener, especially if you're learning English. We've said niche content is enjoyable, but what's the actual academic advantage?
Right, how does this move beyond just fun listening into being a genuine learning strategy?
Exactly, because it helps with English acquisition.
Behan, let me play devil's advocate for a second. If you're listening to a show about, I don't know, obscure 18th century naval knots,
Okay.
won't you just encounter vocabulary that's so specialized, so technical, that it might actually be discouraging? Isn't the goal usually broader, more general vocabulary?
That's a really fair challenge, but the sources argue that the specialization is actually the advantage.
How so?
Well, think about it. When you listen to a general news show, you get broad vocabulary, sure, but it often stays quite passive. You hear it, maybe you vaguely recognize it.
Okay.
But when you engage with your passion, say, that Naval Knot podcast, you're exposed to what the sources call context-specific vocabulary.
Meaning, words you need to understand the actual topic being discussed.
Exactly. You need to know the terms for the parts of a steam engine, or the steps in sourdough fermentation if you want to follow the conversation.
Ah, see, so that vocabulary becomes essential to the topic itself, which makes it immediately valuable to you, the listener.
Right. And therefore, instantly more memorable. When the topic resonates deeply, you retain those specialized terms better because they're tied to something you already love or are curious about.
You don't just passively hear the word reticulation, maybe.
You understand why it matters to the vintage map collector you're listening to, and you remembered it faster.
Okay, that makes sense. And also, thinking about the communication style, many niche podcasters are just, well, passionate storytellers, aren't they?
Often operating outside that super fast, highly compressed pace you get in commercial news.
Right. So that style often provides more natural English exposure delivered at a slightly more manageable conversational speed.
Which can be less overwhelming if English isn't your first language compared to trying to keep up with rapid-fire mainstream stuff.
So the mechanism seems twofold then. Higher motivation leads to better retention.
And the communication style itself offers accessible, natural spoken English practice.
Plus, maybe the biggest benefit, you actually stay motivated.
Totally. If you love the subject, you'll push through some tough vocabulary about, I don't know, yeast cultivation.
Because the subject itself just pulls you forward, you want to understand.
Exactly. It fuels the learning.
Okay, got it.
And just to really drive home the point that truly no topic is too small, we have to share some of the most hyper-specific examples that came up from listener feedback mentioned in the sources.
Right, these really show the sheer, almost limitless breadth of what's out there.
Prepare yourself. There's a surprisingly complex competitive niche that, frankly, shocked me a little.
Oh yeah, what is it?
A show called Eat to Win.
Eat to win, as in competitive eating.
An entire show dedicated solely to the competitive eating circuit.
You're kidding!
Nope. And it's not just treated as a novelty. Apparently, the hosts analyze technique, training regimes, caloric strategy, even the professional rivalries.
Seriously.
Yeah, the analysis pointed out that the community treats this sport with a level of seriousness you'd normally associate with, like, professional football.
Wow. And they produce detailed, engaging audio about it. That's something else.
Isn't it? And then, sticking with food, there's the culinary niche, which gave us the Bread Chronicles.
Okay, the Bread Chronicles, let me guess.
Yeah.
This is truly hyper niche. An entire show dedicated only to the history, the agricultural science, the cultural impact, of bread.
Not cooking generally, not baking generally, just bread.
Just bread. It's the perfect testament, I think, to the core beauty of this whole niche podcasting world.
Which is?
If the content is driven by genuine, infectious passion, absolutely no topic is too small to find an audience and create something worthwhile.
That's a great point. It reminds us that pretty much every interest, no matter how obscure it might seem to others, is actually a valid entry point into engaging with and mastering English.
Absolutely. It levels the playing field.
Yeah.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, here's our final challenge to you listening. This week, try to ignore the top 20 list for a bit.
Step away from the algorithm's suggestion.
Yeah. Find one niche English podcast that perfectly fits your unique, maybe even slightly weird interest. Search for that truly obscure thing you'd never expect anyone made a dedicated show about. Look beyond the usual suspects. Maybe your thing is the taxonomy of different types of moss, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or the detailed history of Lego bricks through the decades.
Or the competitive world of miniature painting.
Or hey, maybe you're even the surprisingly structured rules of underwater basket weaving. The point is, the content is almost certainly out there, waiting for you to find it.
And just remember that profound thought we touched on earlier. Learning English, really learning it, isn't just about memorizing grammar rules or drilling flashcards.
No, it's much deeper than that.
It's ultimately about connecting with stories, with communities, with topics that genuinely make you feel alive and engaged.
Use those passions as your learning engine.
Find that connection, find that show.
And the fluency, the confidence, it will follow much more naturally. Happy listening.
Happy listening, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.